By the end of today's video, you'll have a clear understanding of exactly how you can score points in all the different ways for the FRC rebuild season. Now, there are a few caveats when it comes to collecting and playing with the fuel. I'm Coach Pratt, and I've been teaching robotics design for over a decade now. And today, we're going to go through exactly how you can score points in auto and all the different caveats you can get that allow you to win points and not score points. Do the same in TeleOp and also in the end game. And then we'll also talk about how you can gain some of those ranking points as well so that your team can hopefully make it into the playoffs. The first thing to understand about the rebuild season is that there are two ways that you can score points this season. You can score fuel or the game piece into the hub, and you can climb. That's it. There's no other ways to earn points. So let's talk about in auto. In auto, both alliances' hubs are active. And that's really important because the hub is that central structure you throw that fuel or that game piece inside. And you only gain points while that fuel goes in an active hub. And that's really critical. In auto, you get 1 point per fuel that's scored actively in there. And both of them are active, so of course you can both score points regardless of which one you're on. Now, one thing to note is that you are not allowed to launch a piece of fuel unless part of your bumper is within your alliance zone. When we talk about your alliance zone here, looking down at the map here, the alliance zone is either on the right or the left side of the bumpers or this gate area, respectively. So you have to have at least a partial section of this over inside of that section for auto in order for you to be allowed to actually score points. I've scoured the manual, and it does seem as though you are allowed to shoot while climbing as well. There's no rule that explicitly says you are not allowed to, and you can't assume something is not being true. As well, during autonomous, human players are also allowed to score fuel for 1 point from their outpost. This does mean that if you've got a player who's particularly good at basketball, you may want to consider recruiting from your local sports team, depending on how high their throughput can be. As far as in autonomous, you can also get points for climbing the tower. Now, you get 15 points per robot that reaches level 1, and that level 1 means that you are suspended from that low rung and no longer touching the tower base, which is that green section itself. You are allowed to be transitively supported on this steel piping as well as you're grabbing from these rungs to be allowed yourself to lift yourself up. However, in autonomous, only 2 robots can score for this. So you might want to set yourself up where you have an auto where you can score on the left and an auto where you can score on the right if you're a team that's going towards that climbing, because you would not want to set yourself up completely where you would run into issues where your other alliance partner cannot score. Those are the only ways that you can score inside of autonomous. Let's go over to TeleOp. Of course, scoring the fuel is the exact same. In TeleOp, you still get 1 point. You also have to be within your alliance zone, and that does mean that your bumpers can be partially over. So as long as your bumpers are slightly overlapping your alliance zone, you are allowed to score fuel. Now, this is where things get a little bit tricky this season because for the first 10 seconds of TeleOp, both hubs are active. So you can still score fuel 4 points. And I think that's a really critical distinction here within that. But then after those first 10 seconds of TeleOp, you have 4 25-second shifts. And for each of those 4 25-second shifts, your hub is either active or it is inactive. And the very first shift is the team that did worse in autonomous. So the team that did better in auto, their hub starts inactive during that first alliance shift, but is still active for those first 10 seconds. In an active hub, you get 1 point. If you score fuel in an inactive hub, you get 0 points. Same thing, you're only allowed to shoot if you're overlapping your alliance zone. Human players are still allowed to score in the fuel. So this means that as this kind of shift thing is coming up, you're going to have a couple different options you can do. One, you can try to hoard all of your fuel into your specific alliance zone. 2, you can try to get it into your outpost area for your humans. So perhaps you might have loading sections so that you can dump it into your robot. You can be collecting them as well. And then 3, you can also be playing defense on the other opponent's alliance zone. This is a critical distinction this season. A lot of teams are thinking that there are protected zones. And outside of the end game, there are no protected zones this season. So all 3 blue robots could be over in the red alliance zone at any point in time during this game, as long as they're not contacting a robot or contacting a tower as they're in that final end zone, or that final end game, the 30 seconds. So you can definitely be playing a lot of heavy defense during those alliance shifts. Now, there are a few caveats when it comes to collecting and playing with the fuel that I think it's really important for you to know. You are not allowed to catch fuel that comes out of the hub. So when you shoot into the hub, it automatically kicks it back into that neutral zone. Until that fuel contacts anything else besides the robot or fuel controlled by that robot, it is not allowed to be picked up. So that typically means it needs to contact a different robot. It needs to contact a different alliance robot. It needs to contact the floor. And maybe it bounces around like crazy, but then you cannot actually pick it up. So you cannot catch something that's coming up in the air. As well, something that's critical to note about these fuel points is that there are no limits to the amount of fuel that you are allowed to control. The one caveat is you're only allowed to start with 8 preloaded fuels, but that doesn't mean you're not allowed, that there is a limit to what you can hold during autonomous. You could go ahead and pick up even more. You could go full meme strategy if you want to and just have a robot that just simply stores as much fuel as possible within your 110-inch and 30-inch heights and then shares it out to your partners. And then just play full defense the entire time, hold that off. Lastly, after those phase shifts are done, you also have the endgame period. And in the endgame period, both alliance hubs are once again active. And again, you get 1 point for that fuel. Human players can continue to score fuel throughout the entire game. Doesn't matter if it's auto, teleop, or endgame. But at endgame is where we actually start getting some of that tower climbing. Level 1 is 10 points is robot off that carpet or the base. So you have to be completely off, supported by the low rung. It doesn't mean supported by low rung. It could be supported by mid rung too, technically. Yeah. Level 2 is that your bumpers are completely above the low rung. That's 20 points per. And then level 3 is where your bumpers are completely above the mid rung. Now keep in mind, you do have that 30-inch height requirement, which means you cannot just reach up to that first or reach up to that mid rung and just lift yourself all the way up from the start. Likely you're going to have to do some sort of hand over hand. Take a look at the FTC Into the Deep season if you're looking for some inspiration for how you might do a hand-over-hand climbing. Now, you're only allowed to score points for one level, which means that if you get level 3, you also don't get level 2, you also don't get level 1. So for tower climbing, there's a maximum of 90 points altogether across all 3 teams. One thing of note when it comes to those protection zones, as I was talking about earlier, you cannot contact a robot while it's off the ground during that endgame or a robot that is touching its own tower in its alliance zone. Watch that because they will automatically get awarded their level 3 tower points. Not for all 3 robots, but for the robot that you do connect with. Another restriction for climbing, you cannot climb on top of each other. So you cannot be supported by a runner robot in order to reach a level. So not cool. You got to do it all on your own strength. So those are the main points that you can score points. But let's talk about ranking points for your qualifiers to get you into those playoffs as well. There's 3 ways that you can earn ranking, 4 ways you can earn ranking points. Just like last season, if you win, you get 3 ranking points. If you tie, you get 1 ranking point. If you lose, no ranking points. But then there are 3 different kind of bonus objectives that you can do to be able to earn yourself a ranking point. The first one is the energized ranking point, which means you have to score 100 fuel, at least for a district event. You have to score 100 fuel into the hub throughout the entire match, in auto, teleop, and endgame included. For the supercharged ranking point, you score 360 total across all. But it looks like the first team is also thinking that there's going to be even more necessary. They also reserve the right to add in more fuel as necessary. The last ranking point you can earn is the traversal ranking point, which is scoring at least 50 tower points collectively as alliance in that single match. So that could be, there's lots of different ways you can get there. Maybe 2 in autonomous and 2 robots at level 1. So if you can climb level 1 twice for 2 robots across both, that's fine. 2 robots at level 3. 2 robots at level 2 and 1 robot at level 1. There's a lot of different ways of skinning this cat, a lot of different ways that you can get it, particularly in the regional district events. Now, the district championships, the first championships, they will likely increase the numbers that are required to be able to get these ranking points as the season goes by, and they will let you know in team updates for that as well. So I hope that makes scoring in the rebuild season a lot simpler for you. If I missed anything, let me know in the comments down below, or if there are any clarifications or rule changes that get added in team updates, also let me know in the comments down below. And as always, best of luck out there this season.